What's going on, everyone? I am so stoked for this season. I mean, we're still like a month or so away from actual Laker basketball, and I cannot wait. I can't wait for all the news coming in at a training camp, right? That's right around the corner. That's like 2 weeks away, something like that. LeBron's training camp should be within the next like week or so. Hopefully, we get a little information about that. And this is just a roster that you just look at and just go, man, this is insanely deep, right? Like, I can't think of the last time the Lakers were this deep. This is deeper than the 2020 team for sure. Now, are they as good? We'll see, right? Chemistry, right? Relationships. I mean, that team was having like movie nights and they were like best friends. They're out there partying on the sidelines and stuff. Like they were living their best life. That bond that they had was just so out of this world, right? And this Lakers team is going to have to build that. And there are definitely these pros and cons with this type of roster. Obviously, the pros are going to be able to keep everyone's minutes down. You're one of, if not the best teams in the league. You're going to be able to keep, or you should be able to keep, knock on wood, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, their minutes down and them healthy going into the playoffs, right? You have guys on any given night that could step up. If somebody doesn't have it that night, it's not a big concern, right? Like, yeah, look at the Denver game, and it was like, D'Lo didn't have it going, and Schroeder was like, not, and it's like, well, what do? It's like, well, oh, don't worry, we got, Gabe Vincent and Torian Prince and, Christian Wood now, and you got all these options and all these threats that it's such a nice feeling to have. And then the downsides, though, are this is a very young team with several guys that have a lot to prove, that you're going to have to get them to buy in, commit, and they're used to playing 20 to 30 minutes a game, and now you're going to have to convince them to play 15 minutes a game, and some nights might not even play, and kind of managing, like Darvin Ham's going to have to earn his paycheck for sure. But again, it's a great problem to have. Anytime you have too much depth, you're fine. You're in a good spot. And you can always figure it out later on. But another thing that this roster very likely will do is attract other stars. And look, the Lakers don't necessarily need another star, right? But if later on down the road, right, it's one of the reasons why, like many believe, that D'Lo is going to get traded and why they kind of had him waive his no trade clause and stuff like that. Once you have your established core and you have your understanding and you got like your main pieces, because once you get into the playoffs, you're only running 8 to 10 guys anyway, probably closer to 8. Once you have that established, then everyone else is just kind of there just to be able bodies, right? And again, like, do you get to the point where it's like, okay, we have too much, maybe we consolidate some of these guys into a more piece that is more of an impact guy, or even like more of a need, right? Like, again, yes, they could use another center, right? Christian Wood, he's the other big man, but he's more of a power forward than a center. And another position like shooting guard, you look at shooting guard and you're like, that could be better, right? So there's always ways to improve. And if you could get a guy that basically all but guarantees, I mean, nothing is a guarantee, but about as close as you can get, if you can get that player, why wouldn't you, right? And you look, like, I think of guys like the stars that haven't won, right? The guys, like a Damian Lillard. Again, it's always going to come down to price and cost and like what you have to give up, right? But if it's not going to happen anytime soon, for one. But as you get to like that trade deadline, you should have a pretty good understanding of where you're at. The guys that are kind of, they're here just to kind of be here at this point, right? Like they're kind of just like extra. And it's like, well, if we can go and get a Damian Lillard and still keep a Christian Wood, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, Jared Vanderbilt, Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes, right? Like Gabe Vincent, right? You start looking at stuff like that. It's like, all right, like, we could get Damian Lillard and still be 10 players deep. right? Like, why wouldn't you? Like, if that's the piece that puts you over the top. The concern is always, like, you don't want to trade depth for that star. But if you could have both, why wouldn't you? Right? Like, like that's the problem. Like, you look at a team like Phoenix and it's like, yeah, dude, they are so front loaded heavy. If anything goes wrong, that team is sinking fast, right? They're sinking fast as the Titanic, right? But if you have a roster like the Lakers do, and you can turn three guys into a star or even like a superstar, it may make sense. And again, I think of more the veteran guys that haven't won yet, right? Some of them I'd want to stay away from, like James Harden. I'd want to stay away from James Harden, right? Now, you can make an argument, James Harden, he wouldn't be the first or second option. He would be the third with LeBron and AD, and he'd be a better fit. Like, he'd be an upgrade over D'Lo, sure. But I don't know if, like, that's the headache you want, where you're one bad day away from him trying to sabotage the team, right? But I look at, like, again, like a guy like Damian Lillard, like if it doesn't work out with the Warriors, right? Does Chris Paul get bought out and then maybe you don't even have to make a trade, right? Or maybe you do take D'Lo and a couple other pieces and go make a move and go get somebody else. Maybe you go get that center. Or maybe you go get like a Valanciunas or something like that and then, sign Chris Paul to replace him, that kind of thing. Like, because there are those stars out there that haven't won an NBA championship, that know their years are starting to whittle down, and it's like, this could be my opportunity. I mean, the Lakers, especially if we're like one of, if not the best teams in the league, which we should be, right? If we're the one seed in the West and we're just kind of like running through everybody, you don't think Dame might look at that and go, that's probably my best chance to win an NBA championship, right? Or, DeMar DeRozan or something like that, right? You don't think he's looking at that going like, man, like, I want to be a Laker and I could really win an NBA championship with this roster, right? Again, it comes down to the star. It comes down to the price. But like, even like a Kyrie, right? I don't want to like super go it back into the Kyrie thing, but it is something to like keep an eye on. And it's something that I do believe will be rumored and talked about again at some point this season. Because if Dallas doesn't do well and they start struggling, and look, Luka has like a thigh injury or whatever, and he was talking after his game with Lithuania, was talking about how like he's gonna have to manage it all year, and that it's not good, and but he's gonna play through it, right? Like, if Dallas is this team that's just like kind of on the outside looking in, which I think is very likely, right? Like, again, like you look at the Western Conference, who is Dallas really better? Right? Like, I think every team that finished ahead of them, you can make an argument, are just as good, if not better. Right? At best, I think Dallas is like the 7th or 8th seed. Right? I don't think they're better than the Kings. I don't think they're better than the Lakers. I don't think they're better than the Warriors. I don't think they're better than the Clippers. Again, healthy, like assuming everything's healthy, right? I don't think they're better than Denver. Memphis, we'll see how, you have Ja that's out, 25 games. Can they weather that storm? And when he comes back, what does he look like? Because he's like suspended from like all basketball activities. So how much is he able to train and work out and stuff? But if he's good and the Grizzlies are fine, then I don't think they're better than the Grizzlies. The Pelicans with Zion and Brandon Ingram and stuff like that, there's a lot of question marks with them. But if they're healthy and good to go, although they're already starting to have issues, but they've shown that they could be a really good team. The Minnesota Timberwolves, like, I don't know. It's not something that's that far-fetched. Kyrie's on a very reasonable contract, and you got a lot of wings, right? You got a lot of sizable guys. Do you maybe look and go like, hey, D'Lo and Rui, trade them for Kyrie, right? And you got Kyrie, LeBron, AD, Vando, and Reeves, right? And then you still have Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, Torian Prince. I mean, stop. Like, you're not beating that team. You're not. Like you're not beating LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and Anthony Davis with like 8 blue chip rotation guys. You're just not. So, I mean, it's not like, again, it's not something that like I think needs to happen or that will happen. But I do, it's the Lakers, and they're going to be very good this year. And they have a lot of depth that you're going to have to kind of keep an eye on, right? And there's several guys that are veteran guys, veteran stars that haven't, well, Kyrie's one, but again, like guys like Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard, there's like, does Trae Young become available? Does Giannis end up pushing his way out and want to go Lakers? Does Embiid at some point? I don't know if they'd be able to go and obtain them, but like, there's some guys that are out there that, and there's always that guy or two that no one expects that all of a sudden becomes available. All of a sudden, like, it's like the Lakers are looking good. They got the talent. They got the depth. They could trade for me and still maintain the depth and talent and be a contender and be the number 1 team in the league. And I would all but guarantee them a championship. Like, I don't know. It's something to keep in mind. Like I said, it's not something that I would like super hold on to, but you look at this roster and you look at just everything that's happened this offseason, and it's kind of like it's almost positioned to make a trade, right? It's almost positioned to kind of consolidate some of these guys into like that missing piece, right? That basically guarantees you're over the top. Guarantee is the wrong word because nothing's guaranteed, but you get what I'm saying. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think like, yeah, it makes sense? Like, put some pieces together and go get that guy that puts you over the top? Do you think like, no, like, regardless, whoever's available, if a vet does become available, keep things as is? Feel whatever your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments.